Secretary. The Tuesday report quotes General Ali Razmanjou saying the information was retrieved from laptops, GPS devices, and maps. Razmanjou is naval commander in the powerful Revolutionary Guard. General Razmanjou said the move falls within Iran's rights under international regulations. Do you agree with that?
I do not, sir. According to international law, there was no authorities to board those vessels. Those were sovereign U.S. vessels. They had the right to be where they were, and they should not have been seized.
As you know, as you mentioned, against international law, too, they interviewed a guy, a military man apologizing. They put them on their knees with their hands behind their heads. They then also videoed an individual crying, and then they decorated the people, Iranians that did it, and then they had a parade. What do you think we should have done in response to all that, Admiral Richardson? And wouldn't you agree that this was a humiliation for the most powerful nation on earth, the United States of America?
So I think the Navy's been very clear in terms of expressing our complete protest to this.
And that was sufficient, expressing a protest. Senator Reid.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And I want to first thank the Secretary for his distinguished service of many years. And I was just thinking, are you the longest serving Secretary of the Navy, or will you be at the?
I am the longest serving since World War I. Josephus Daniels, who served during World War I, has a record that I don't think anybody will touch.
Who became famous for banning alcohol on board Navy ships.
I'm hopeful my legacy will be a little brighter than that.
I think he was most famous because his assistant secretary of the Navy was Franklin Roosevelt, but that's another story entirely.
And it's where sailors would say very sarcastically, let's go get a cup of Joseph or Josephus, where a cup of Joe came from, because alcohol got replaced with coffee, as you as a Navy veteran and me as a Navy veteran know very well.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. I also note that the Master Chief, Petty Officer of the Navy, Master Chief Stevens, is here. Chief, thank you, and thank you for all of the non-commissioned officers that make up our Navy and all the men and women of the Navy. I want to follow up on a point, Mr. Secretary, that the Chairman raised, which is critical, which is the need for the Ohio-class replacement, but the need also for a scrupulous budget process that ensures we do not see some of the repetition of cost overruns we saw in other programs. Last year in the Defense Authorization Act, at Section 1022, we took the fund, which the Admiral was just asked about, and expanded authorities to include incremental funding, economic order quantity, et cetera. And we also asked for a report from the Navy with respect to the fund. So let me just, several issues for both you and Admiral Richardson. First, it has been, and I presume, but I'd like to confirm, this is the #1 modernization priority of the Navy. Is that correct, Mr. Secretary?
Yes.
Yes. And then the expanded authorities in the National Sea-Based Deterrence Fund, Admiral Richardson and the Secretary, you support those enthusiastically, I hope.
Sir, I think that to recapitalize this extremely important program, our #1 program, look forward to the combination of appropriations and authorities to get this job done.
And the point I think you made, Admiral Richardson, is this sort of falls outside the just traditional Navy shipbuilding, because this is part of our nuclear triad, which is strategic defense of the United States. And in fact, I would anticipate down the line, as other components, the air and land components, come on, they would have the benefit of some type of national defense department support also. Is that?
Sir, it seems to make sense. And the other thing that sets this apart, not only its importance, but the fact that we only do this generationally. It's something that happens about it's been 40 years since we built the Ohio class.
And is there any idea about when we can expect that report coming up with under Section 1022 of the Defense Act?
I will give you a definitive answer very soon.
Yes, thanks.
And but On the cost, I do want to point out that so far we've taken $10 billion out of this program. Going forward, $8 billion in terms of construction cost, about $1 billion in operation and maintenance, and about $1 billion in non-recurring engineering. So we want every one of these boats to come in under $5 billion in then-year dollars.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Mr. Secretary, also I mentioned in my opening comments the difficult choice with respect to the V-22. Can you give us some context? And I know none of these choices are easy because of the constraints that you face.
Senator, it's my understanding that while the Marine part of the V-22 contract is ending, the Navy part, the carrier-on-board delivery, the COD replacement is picking up. And it was certainly not our intent to break the multi-year. In fact, we thought we were folding this in under the multi-year. If we inadvertently are breaking the multi-year, that was certainly not our intent. And the Marines in their unfunded priority list have additional V-22s that they would also like to procure.
Finally, General Neller, let me just thank you for your service and the service of the men and women of the Corps. And just a comment part from the question is that you are right now trying to get the ACV out the door. And it builds on our experience with Expeditionary Fighting Vehicle, which was not a happy time. So like the Chairman, I hope your personal involvement in the acquisition process and your efforts can get this system to the Corps as quickly and as cost-effectively as possible.
Senator Reid, I was involved with the EFE, and I understand the concern and the cost. And this is a totally different approach using commercial off-the-shelf vehicles. So we're hopeful that the protest will get resolved so that the two vendors will be able to provide 16 vehicles each, and we'll be able to down select to a single vehicle from there and buy these vehicles. And I'll be watching very closely the schedule and the cost of these vehicles.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, John.
Senator Sessions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Admiral Richardson, this conventional thought, is it not, that the triad is important? This administration supports the entire triad, but the Ohio submarine replacement program will be critical to that and perhaps the most important part of it for our national security.
So I think that all the legs of the triad are critically important. Ours is obviously, the one we're focused on is the sea-based leg, which will carry 70% of the warheads in the future.
And I know that we have challenges with financing because we're going to hit a number of big programs that are going to arise at that same time. But, Mr. Secretary, you would remain committed to moving forward, would you not, with the Ohio replacement? And also, the fact that it's now not going to have to be refueled would be another cost saver in the years to come.
That's correct. We only have to build 12 instead of 14 because it doesn't have to be refueled.
Now, Mr. Secretary, the Navy analysis for the littoral combat ship has gone on for quite a long time. It started in the 90s. And I remember Admiral Vern Clark, CNO, advocated this. We had the requirement of 55, and then we went to 52. This is a requirement that arose in the Navy and has been maintained by every CNO and every Secretary of the Navy since, I guess, the program began. How do you decide that this is a requirement for the Navy? Isn't there a formal process you go through?
There is, Senator. It's called the Force Structure Assessment. The last one we did, well, we did one in 2012, which revalidated the need for 52. That was refreshed in 2014, which also validated the need for 52 small surface combatants. And we're in the process now of doing another force structure assessment.
Well, you had the fleet recommendations, the combatant commander's recommendations, worldwide requirements are all considered. Is that correct?
That's correct. All requirements are
Well,
considered.
how is the production on the ship going now? Is it at or below the congressional cap for cost?
It's a good bit below. The first concern and rightfully so, was on cost. The price of ships coming off the line today is about 50% of the first ones that came off the line.
Historically, the first ship in its class and the second one probably are more expensive than when you move along. And it seems to me, having seen that shipyard line being produced, that ship being produced now, it's moving out at a really fine pace. The bugs are getting out of it, virtually all gone. It's coming through an assembly line almost like an automobile. And I fear that we're going to end up raising the cost per copy if we reduce the number of ships, and we end up like we did with the B-2 and a lot of other programs. Congress says we're going to do this, the Navy sets out to achieve the goal, and then we alter the plan. Is there a danger that cost per copy would go up?
I think it's almost a certainty that if you reduce numbers, the cost per copy will go up.
And so there are a lot of capabilities that the ship has. They put modules on it. One of the modules is the anti-submarine capability. Admiral Richardson, I know you're not happy with where we are on that. Does this strike a blow first at the validity of the ship? And number two, is it a challenge you think can't be overcome? It's a technological, high-tech challenge. Is it something that we can fix?
So we can fix this. We're behind on the testing there. It's not where I want it to be. I've just commissioned with Secretary Stackley a 60-day study on the future of the program to incorporate the lessons that we've learned today, but this is nothing that can't be overcome.
And so we absolutely have to have an improved anti-mine system, do we not?
We do, yes, sir.
And that's one of the bases for the littoral combat ship in its original plan.
That's one of its missions, yes, sir.
Well, I hope we can get to the 308-ship Navy, but I don't know how we'll get there if we lose another 12 ships. And if you replace it with a ship that costs 2 or 3 times as much, that's going to be difficult. And it also is lean in terms of fuel use and low crew, 40, 60 crew to operate the ship compared to 200 or so for the next destroyer-type ship. So I'm concerned about this, and I hope that we can continue to discuss it as time goes by. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Shaheen.
Thank you all very much for being here today and for your service to the country. Admiral Richardson, I want to start with you and ask about the status of the Virginia payload module, because I understand that the hope is that it will address the loss of strike capability with the retirement of 4 guided missile submarines. Can you talk about that a little bit and what the current status of the program is?
Yes, ma'am. That's exactly right. Our SSGNs, the submarines that carry large loads of Tomahawk missiles, are going to retire in the mid to late 2020s. And our plan is that by building Virginia-class submarines with the payload module installed, we increase the Tomahawk load by 28 missiles per submarine. That program is on track to be incorporated in the Virginia-class program in fiscal year 19. We'll do 1 in that year and 2 per year after that, consistent with the Virginia-class buy. And that's really just the beginning of that program, ma'am. Not only will it allow us to reconstitute our strike capacity, but with that much volume, payload volume, and large ocean interfaces, we can also do special operations forces, unmanned vehicles, a host of other options.
And can you talk about the cost effectiveness of doing that?
It's extremely cost effective to add that type of capability into a program that is healthy. We need to make sure that we do those, we abide by those practices which allow us to achieve and maintain cost effectiveness.
So give me a comparison, if you would. Why does that make more sense than some other options we might have?
Well, you're just really talking about a smaller incremental cost on an already healthy program by inserting that module rather than designing in a completely new program to reconstitute that. As well, by distributing these over more than the 4 SSGNs we have right now, you not only do it in a fiscally responsible way, but you increase the options to the warfighter as well.
Thank you. Secretary Mabus, in your recent testimony before the House Appropriations Subcommittee, you pointed out that the Navy has a maintenance backlog problem, and obviously one of the areas that has been challenging has been in our public shipyards, and as someone who represents the Portsmouth Naval Shipyard, I know that that's been an issue, but one that I was very pleased to see that the administration put in more than the goal of 6% for maintenance. So can you talk about what you expect this year in the budget and whether you will actually be able to use that entire recommendation from the administration for the 7%?
Yeah, thank you, Senator. First, Portsmouth and all our public shipyards are doing a terrific job. They were caught, as were so many other things, in sequester, the hiring freeze, and there was this maintenance backlog that built up that we're gradually reducing. As you pointed out, we went above the mandatory 6% to try to ease that. We're also hiring to the level that those public shipyards need, 33,500 total employees in those shipyards. We will certainly be able to use these monies in Portsmouth and in the other public shipyards, and it will allow us to reduce that backlog. And right now, under the current budget, we think we will be completely out from that backlog by 2019, so 3 years from now.
That's great. You also have talked about, from the posture hearing last week, that Southcom is short on surface vessels, and as you may know, we've had a real challenge in the state of New Hampshire and throughout the country in terms of heroin and the extent to which heroin is affecting our communities and families. And I just wonder if you could talk about what progress in combating trafficking of narcotics you have seen with the Navy's involvement, and whether the shortfall of surface ships in Southcom might help with this, if we could address that shortfall.
Well, it's one of the reasons that we remain so committed to building the fleet, to get to that force structure assessment of 308 ships, because certainly drug interdiction, the other things we do with our partners in South America and in the Caribbean is a large part of that. We simply haven't had the fleet. As the chairman pointed out, it takes a long time to build a Navy ship and to build a fleet. And once it declines, it takes a long time to turn it around. But we are trying, using different types of ships, things like the Expeditionary Fast Transport down there, which has the speed to interdict. And as the fleet grows, you're going to see more naval assets in Southcom.
Well, thank you. Obviously, that will be very important to help us deal with this epidemic. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Ayotte.
Thank you, Chairman. I want to thank you, Secretary Mabus and Admiral Richardson, for including in your request for funding for 2017 for the new junior enlisted barracks at Portsmouth Naval Shipyard. Thank you for really making sure that we prioritize that, because I know the conditions weren't good there. So I'm very appreciative of that, and thank you. I also wanted to ask you, both of you, you both mentioned in your written testimony the large displacement unmanned underwater vehicles. And Secretary Mabus, I note that you said in your prepared testimony that you're going to begin to have these vehicles take on some missions in 2022. As these UUVs are fielded to ensure that we're using our resources wisely, I would encourage the Navy to utilize existing public shipyard infrastructure where possible to support the engineering, technical problems, logistics, and maintenance, because you have some expertise there that I think you can take advantage of. And obviously with the budget situations, to the extent we can use the expertise that exists at our shipyards, and obviously the Portsmouth Naval Shipyard has some tremendous expertise. So Admiral Richardson and Secretary Mabus, will you be looking for opportunities to use our existing capabilities and expertise as we continue to develop the unmanned underwater vehicles that I know that we're going to be developing to help defend the nation?
Yes.
Great.
Yes, ma'am, absolutely. And particularly the team at Portsmouth has some deep skills in deep submergence, submarine rescue types of things, exquisite types of of capability there that we'll be turning to.
That'd be great, Admiral. I know they're anxious to partner with you on this and hope to be able to give some assistance to you as we further develop this area to defend the nation. Appreciate it. I also wanted to ask about a report that Admiral Richardson, in October of 2015, the New York Times reported that Russian submarines and spy ships are aggressively operating near the vital undersea cables that carry almost all of our global internet communications, raising concerns among some American military and intel officials that the Russians might be planning to attack those lines in times of tension or conflict. So what's your assessment of what's happening in terms of Russian intentions and activity related to undersea cables? Obviously, this is very important in terms of our communication system, and to the extent you can talk about it in this setting, what are we doing from the Navy perspective to protect those assets?
Ma'am, you're exactly right. About 99% of our international transatlantic internet traffic rides on those cables, and that cannot be reconstituted if that gets disrupted. And so we're obviously taking that threat very seriously. It's extremely difficult to talk about any of that in this forum, but I would welcome the chance to talk to you and give you the full classified brief.
We'll set that up. I appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am.
And also, not to pick on you today, but I did have a follow-up question either to you or Secretary Mabus, and that is related to our attack submarine fleet. What I wanted to understand is what our current requirements are for the attack submarine fleet and when the requirement was established, and also what percentage of combatant commander requests for attack submarines is the Navy currently meeting?
Yes, ma'am. Our current requirement is for 48. That level, I think, was established in 2006. Whether I'm off by a year or two, it was a long time ago, and the security environment has changed a great deal since then. And so I'm commissioned a study to reassess that level this year. Currently, as you know, ma'am, the attack submarine profile will dip below that requirement of 48 submarines in the 2020s, and so that's got us very concerned. We're about able to meet about 50 to 60% of combatant commander demand right now, and so it's a very high demand asset.
Secretary?
It's an example, Senator, of when you miss a year building a ship, because we missed some years, we only built one
Right.
submarine instead of two. You just don't make that up. And that's why we're committed to 2 submarines per year. We've got a multi-year.
And that's what's critical as we look at 2022, where we dip to 1 Virginia class, that we've got to figure out that we can build 2.
Well, one of the things that we are trying to figure out, and it will be part
Sorry,
of
2021.
2021, because that's the year the Ohio-class replacement
Right.
starts. But you're absolutely right, and we're working on how to get the capability and the capacity to do 2 Virginias and the Ohio-class at the same time, and I'm confident that'll be part of the 2018 budget.
That's excellent. We look forward to working with you on that. I think it's critical as well as we look at the need out there. And I appreciate, Admiral, that you're already undertaking a reexamination, because as you've rightly pointed out, conditions have completely changed since 2006, and we know of existing threats that are out there that really increase our need for capacity. So we appreciate. Thank you, all of you.
Senator Donnelly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank all the witnesses for your being here and for the Master Chief as well. Admiral Richardson, as you know, Indiana is home to Naval Surface Warfare Center Crane. The foremost mission of the lab is supporting the Navy's strategic weapons system. And given the priority of nuclear modernization, I wanted to invite you to Crane if you can make it out there.
Sir, I'll put it on the list. It's a priority.
Thank you very much. Secretary Mabus, in regards to mental health, I'm concerned our services aren't adequately staffed to provide troops with ready and timely access to mental health care. Every quarter, the Navy submits reports that use the current number of Navy mental health providers for both the number of providers required and the number authorized. And so as we look at this, I'd like to see the Navy's last 4 quarterly reports on mental health requirements and staffing, if you can provide that for us.
I'll do that right away, Senator.
Very good. And we'd also like an explanation as you look at that on how you calculate your mental health staffing requirements and your recommendations for whether and how we can modify the FRAMs or another model to better meet the Navy's needs, if you can do that.
Yeah, we'll do that, Senator.
Great. This is probably for Admiral Richardson. You know, when I was younger, I remember the Pueblo incident in North Korea, and that boat is still there. And I remember, you know, in reading and following it, one of the biggest problems we had was when it was taken, there were really no assets around to try to help out, from what was indicated. And we saw what happened with the riverine boats. And, you know, obviously, there's an investigation going on, but from what is read and how much is true, we don't know. Talk about cannibalizing parts from a third boat to try to put a second boat together. Problems with satellite gear. Problems with other things that were involved. And so what we want to try and do, obviously, is to avoid these kinds of scenarios in close border areas and in places especially like North Korea and the Iranian borders. So what is being done to ensure this doesn't happen again? That's question one. And then question two is, if it does, what are we doing to make sure they don't take the boat and bring it to wherever they're going?
Right. So all of those questions are very valid questions. Those are the exact questions I have, and about 100,000 more. And that's what the investigation is getting after. We intend that to be comprehensive to address all of those factors. But we're not waiting for that to get done in terms of moving out and starting to improve the way that we operate, support those ships, particularly those ones that are forward deployed. And so the team in Fifth Fleet and really around the Navy is taking a look at, you know, how that system works and where the vulnerabilities are and shoring those up. With respect to the support that those boats had, you know, they were in the middle of the Persian Gulf, as you know. There were two carriers there. There was no shortage of support. That happened on a very quick timeline. But you know, the response was, the details of that will be part of the investigation, and I look forward to a briefing on that when it's done.
Is one of the things that we're checking on the status of our riverine inventory, the quality of it, what shape it's in, maintenance of it, all of those kind of things, because one of the things that concerned me was to see, to get two going, we needed three. And so you're in a position where neither, 2 out of 3 couldn't do it on their own. They had to kind of be put together to put one together. So I was wondering where we are with that.
Absolutely. We're looking at every aspect of the readiness generation of that part of our Navy and the rest. You say you don't want it to happen in forward deployed places near threat countries. I don't want it to happen anywhere in our Navy, and so we're looking comprehensively.
Because one of the things is as you well know and as you all care so much about, you don't want to put these sailors in a position of having to make almost impossible decisions.
Absolutely right, sir.
General Neller, I want to ask you, we just saw Vladimir Putin talk about the number of troops in Syria that he's supposedly going down. Now, we don't know if he's actually going to do it, if he's not going to do it. You are the leader of a lot of extraordinary soldiers in that neighborhood, not, you know, in the area. I was wondering what your opinion is of what's going on with him and, you know, what the appropriate response is, or how you think this plays out. Senator, I can only take at face value, and we all found out yesterday that he decided he was going to withdraw because he said he accomplished his mission. So obviously there's a political piece to this. As far as on the battle space, the cessation of hostilities was honored to some degree by his forces, so I think it potentially creates an opportunity for some forces, to include those that we support, to, if the amount of aviation support that they're getting from the Russians is going to go down, it should enhance their ability to maneuver. So there has been some progress. The one town, Shaddadi, was taken by YPJ. There's other progress going on. I know a little bit more about what's in Iraq, but I think Iraq is a different case than Syria. But I think, and I've not talked to the chairman about this, but my personal opinion is that I think it creates some opportunity for those forces that we've been supporting to possibly make a little more progress. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Ernst.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Gentlemen, thank you for being here today. General Neller, as you know, the Marine Corps just completed an exercise, Sangyang, and it was a multilateral amphibious assault exercise conducted in the Pacific by Navy and Marine forces with the Republic of Korea and other allies. And this exercise successfully demonstrated full-spectrum combined amphibious operations and was a powerful reassurance measure to a number of our allies. And, of course, a strong statement of power projection to our adversaries, which is very important, I feel. And yet we have yet to see the requisite number of amphibious ships underway to test the full capacity of a baseline expeditionary strike group, Marine Expeditionary Brigade, in the training environment. And so with that as an intro, we know that there is a shortage of amphibious ships. And can you provide further insights on how these shortfalls impact the readiness of the Corps and your ability to provide scalable MAGTFs as your contribution to the joint force? If you would please expound on that, please.
Well, Senator, thank you for the question. If you went by COCOM requests for forces, the requirement for amphibs would be close to 50. The stated requirement between Admiral Richardson and my predecessor was 38 to come up with a number of 34, which is what you need to embark 2 Marine Expeditionary Brigades, which is what's at the high end for forcible entry capability. The landing at Sanyang combined 2 Marine Expeditionary units. It was commanded by the 3rd Marine Expeditionary Brigade, General Jansen out of Okinawa, but it was comprised of 6 of our ships and then a number of ROC Marine ships, and there were also Australian and New Zealand soldiers that were part of the landing force. So right now we have 30 amphibious ships. Based on the readiness of those ships, we could probably get, it's actually improved. The fleet readiness plan is, because we've worked really closely with the Navy, the fleet readiness plan is improving the overall readiness of the amphibious fleet, but it has to be that in conjunction with procurement of more new ships. So we'll be up to 34 ships by 2024 and up to 38 by 2028, and then we'll go back down on the other side if there's not a change. So that's what our requirement is. We can't meet all the requirements of the combatant commanders today, which is why we have 2 land-based special purpose MAGTFs to provide a comparable capability for crisis response. So I appreciate the question. We're working very hard. This budget and this Congress has funded the 12th LPD, LPD 28, and they're in the budget. The fit-up is the LXR, first class of a new ship, which would start to be built in 2020, which gets us to this number of 34.
I appreciate that. And is that your best advice to us, General Neller, is simply funding? Or is there more that we can be doing as Congress?
I hate to say that things can be solved by money, but as we talked about and the Secretary mentioned, if you buy ships in block and you have an overlap, the cost of the ship goes down. That's an overall greater commitment of resources, but once you skip a year, the workforce degrades, the cost of the construction goes up, you can't procure materials, early materials, so there is money in this budget and then in FY18 planned to buy lead materials for the LXR. So the best way and the most cost-effective way to build ships is to, when you decide on a design, block them out and have an overlap so you build them and there's no gap.
Thank you, General. And Secretary Mabus, on February 2nd, the last time that you appeared in front of the committee, we discussed the fact that the Director of Naval Intelligence, the Navy's top intelligence officer, has been without an active security clearance for over 2 years. Is this individual still in that position?
Yes, he is, Senator, and let me give you some detail about that. When I was informed in late 2013 that he was, that Admiral Branch was possibly connected to the GDMA case, I thought because of his position, I should remove his security clearance in excess of caution. I was also told, though, assured at that time that a decision would be made within a very short time, a matter of weeks, I was told, as to whether he was involved and what would be the disposition of the case. We continued to check on that over and over and over again and got nothing. So by the early fall, September of 2014, I decided that we had to nominate a successor, which we did, but because of some intervening events, that nomination did not get appear until last fall. At the same time that nomination got up here, we had a new Chief of Naval Operations who rightfully wanted to make sure that flag officers were in the positions with the best skill set and the best qualifications.
I understand that.
And one other thing that I do think is important, during this entire time, I've been checking with General Clapper, the head of National Intelligence, to ask him if there's any degradation of naval intelligence, if there's any concern about how we're operating or the quality of information that we are gathering or how we are processing that. And I've been assured that we're not, that there's not any. And Admiral Branch's two deputies, each of whom has more than 30 years' experience, both are taking up that the part of his job that requires the classification access. He also has a lot of other hats, including managing a 55,000-strong force, which he continues to do.
Okay, I do understand that. I still do have a problem with it. I think to lead a department, you need to lead from the front, and if you have deputies that are doing your job, you're not leading. So I still have an issue with that, and I think we'll follow up at another time because I am over time. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator King.
Mr. Chair, with your permission, I'd like to swap places with Senator King so he can get to an Intel meeting.
No.
That was the answer I was expecting somehow. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I want to welcome back our colleague, Senator McCaskill. Great to see you back at our committee, and wish you good health. Admiral Richardson, General Neller, welcome to your first of these hearings. Admiral Richardson, I was at Naval Reactors yesterday, and your former command, and I can assure you it's in good hands and really an impressive operation. And Secretary Mabus, you've done an extraordinary job. I was sitting here thinking, when you took this job, there were certain words and terms that either weren't heard of at all or certainly didn't have the meaning that they have today. I made a short list. ISIS, South China Sea, the Ukraine, nuclear North Korea, Syria, cyber attack, all of those are things that have come to fruition as challenges since you've been secretary. You have confronted extraordinary challenges, not the least of which is sequestration, all the kinds of budget problems that we've had, and this accelerating threat environment that we're in. And I just want to thank you for really, I think, extraordinary service over a very difficult period. I want to acknowledge that. And I hope someday there's a ship named after you, and it's built in Bath just because I know you're from Mississippi. I couldn't resist.
Talk to some successor of mine.
Yes, I will.
About that.
I'll remember that. Admiral Richardson, to follow up, the decision about naval forces and planning and looking into the future, many of those, if not all, were made before that list I read, before those changes. Are we adequately addressing the change in the world that's affecting the necessity and the needs of the Navy of the future? I worry, to use a tired analogy, that we've got an aircraft carrier that's moving in it, and we may not be necessarily turning it to respond to new challenges.
Sir, you've hit right at the heart and soul of where I'm trying to get the Navy. One is to be more agile so that we can keep pace with the accelerating security environment. But to your point, a number of those concerns were not even on the list of things when we did our last force structure assessment, which is why I've commissioned a new one this year.
So and I think you mentioned earlier in your testimony, there's a couple of other studies you're doing of adequacy of forces and shipbuilding and those kinds of things.
Yes, sir. In addition to the force structure assessment, which will get to sort of the composition and the overall force, I'm looking, and General Neller's my partner in this, in terms of are we looking at and appreciating all of the creative opportunities in combining the fleet we have right now in new and effective ways. So make sure that we don't miss a trick in terms of doing that. And so we've got some fleet design studies that we owe this committee, and we had started on our own. And so we look forward to working together with General Neller on that.
I appreciate that. To get to the, we've been talking some about the Ohio-class replacement, which of course is the bow wave is starting in about 5 years right outside of this fit-up. But it bothers me that the way we budget around here, and we have no capital budget. You're talking about a 40 or a 50-year asset. And, you know, we borrow money to pay park ranger salaries, and we pay cash for 40-year assets. I mean, that's upside down from the way any business or other rational organization would do. You cash for operations and you borrow for capital assets. Shouldn't we be thinking about this when you're building something and trying to pay for it in 3 or 4 years that's going to last 40 or 50 years?
Sir, I think we should take a look at all of that. And so we've got plussed up for the FY21 start of that program. It's going to be important to see those additional funds going forward, or we're going to decimate our shipbuilding budget. And then, as has been talked about, the National Sea-Based Deterrence Fund, that could provide us some options in terms of not only doing sensible things fiscally, but by virtue of doing that, also achieve some significant savings on the order of 10 or more %. And so I think that the combination of the appropriations and the authorities would allow us to do exactly what you say, sir.
Well, I hope we can talk. I've been talking with Chairman Enzi of the Budget Committee about rethinking how we do our federal budget so that we can have a capital budget. Of course, that presupposes we know what we own, but that's a separate question. Secretary Mabus, do you have a comment on that, on this funding problem?
Just to reemphasize what the CNO said, we've known for quite a while, and the 3 CNOs I've been privileged to serve with have all testified that we have to have additional funds for the Ohio-class replacement because, as Admiral Richardson said, it's a once-in-a-generational thing. And the 2 times we've done this before, 41 for Freedom in the 50s and 60s, the Ohio-class in the 70s and 80s, we have added additional funds because it is a national-level program.
Sir, if I could just say, throughout that, we've got to commit to, as you implied, full transparency and auditability of that money as it is applied to this extremely important program. And so, even as we consider these options, we're committed to that level of transparency and auditability.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. General Neller, you and the Admiral have both discussed the importance of technological innovation in this year's budget. Can you talk about the role that the 3rd Battalion of the 5th Marines will have in testing the prototype technologies this year?
Senator, thanks for that question. We're going to take 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines, or 3-5. They're currently deployed in Okinawa. When they come back, they'll have at least a year and a number of exercises. One will be Rim of the Pacific, or RIMPAC, and then we'll put them out at Yuma in support of a Marine Air Weapons Tactics Squadron out in training. And we're going to give them certain capabilities. We're also going to reorganize certain elements of their force in a different way to work on the ability to distribute them across the battlefield. So there'll be a communication piece, there'll be an ISR piece with unmanned systems. There'll be different ways to move them around the battlefield because we'll have the aviation assets that'll be out there for that exercise. So, and we're using them rather than create a unit because they'll be a cohesive unit, and we're very confident that the young Marines in that unit will take advantage of whatever capabilities we give them, and they'll tell us whether they're effective or not, and or they'll come up with their own ideas. So we're counting on the youth and the familiarity with technology, having grown up in part of the digital generation, to help us do that. So we'll test and learn and give them everything we can give them, and they'll come up with new ideas.
Do you think there's going to be a continuing need for this sort of testing, or are you going to consider dedicating a specific unit to this role? Is it temporary? Is it going to be continual?
I think we'll use every exercise that we have with large formations like the MEF, our corps level headquarters, or brigades, there'll be a number of amphibious exercises on both the east and west coast, and we'll, as we have in the past, have them experiment with different operational designs, as Admiral Richardson talked about, different ways to embark the force, different ways to deploy ashore. So we'll take advantage of existing exercises and training opportunities. And if we find something that works, then we'll adapt and we'll adopt it, and we'll see how it goes. So, we've got to change. The world is changing very quickly, and, my concern is that we change faster than our adversaries. And I think exercises and taking units like this to practice or play with this stuff is going to help us.
And Admiral Richardson, can you discuss the Maritime Accelerated Capabilities Office, and specifically, how's it going to work and what's it going to focus on?
Yes, ma'am. We're setting that up as sort of a speed lane for acquisition. This is one of the areas where I'm trying to take advantage of those additional authorities that were granted to service chiefs. It'll be based on the Air Force's Rapid Capability Office, which has assembled all of the decision and approval authorities in a very streamlined package so that we can, for those programs for which it's appropriate, we can just move quickly through the milestones and the acquisition process, get those technologies into production, and then out to the fleet very quickly. And my goal is that we start by setting that speed limit up. We have a couple of test cases go through that. I would say that the Stingray, the unmanned carrier-based aircraft, would be one of those very first ones. And then as we adapt, we move more and more programs out to that speed lane and overall speed the process up.
Okay, thank you, sir. And General Neller, I understand that the majority of the Marine Corps budget goes towards the personnel costs. We spoke about this the other evening, and that's even before the Force of the Future initiatives that Secretary Carter has recently announced. How do these initiatives factor into how you're going to manage the force, and what challenges are they going to present to you?
Like all the services, Senator, we've worked very closely with the OSD on the Force of the Future. Some of the things, we're already doing, and so it will have no impact as far as we think we have a proper way to recruit. There's certain things like additional educational opportunities where there'll be potentially some expense, and there are other things I don't think we know yet. So a lot of these things are going to be in a pilot program, and will not be immediately adopted, but there is going to be some expense with some of them, and we'll just have to figure out, how we're going to do that.
I know every military person who's protecting our freedoms, they want to play a meaningful role. I don't think it's just as we look to the Force of the Future initiatives. I don't think it's just that. I think that they also want to have the training, and they want to have the resources that they need to complete the mission. They want to have the new technologies that we spoke about earlier. Could you address that just in a few sentences, please?
We're in a unique position in that we continue to deploy forces to meet combatant commanders' requirements. We have to sustain the legacy force that we have, and at the same time, we want to modernize. And so there's pressure on that. And so it was mentioned in unfunded requirements. We would, one of the first things we'd probably do is put money back in current operations and maintenance and sustainment. And we've protected to the best of our ability modernization, because keeping old legacy gear sustainable is fine, but what we really need is we need to get the new gear. Because the Marines, not just because the Marines like the new gear, because they need a new gear, whether it's a Joint Light Tactical Vehicle or the Amphibious Combat Vehicle or the Ground Air Task Oriented Radar or any of the command and control stuff or the new aircraft that we're going to buy. We need that to be successful on the battlefield in the future, because our adversaries have done the same thing. They've recapitalized while we've been focused on the fights that we've been in the last 15 years.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Kane.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks to the witness, Secretary Mabus. Congratulations to you and to all. We had a hearing this morning in the Readiness Subcommittee, Readiness Posture hearing, and I will say that Admiral Howard and Assistant Commandant Paxton performed admirably, and we learned that the Assistant Commandant is the longest-serving Assistant Commandant of the Marine Corps since 1950, and so we're in a day of witnesses before us with long tenures. The readiness hearing was a shocking one. I had a classified briefing about readiness issues last week, and what I'm going to say now is not classified material. This is open material. We talked about it at the hearing. Today, less than half of our Marine Corps units are ready to perform their core wartime missions, despite having a congressionally mandated role as the nation's crisis response force. And especially on the aviation side, and I'll get to this, General Neller, 80% of aviation squadrons don't have the required number of aircraft to train. General Paxton talked a bit about that. On the Navy side, less than half of our Navy ships are ready to meet wartime plans, with deferred and unplanned maintenance continues to delay training timelines and prolonging deployments. That prolonging of deployments, which used to be 6 months to now 8 to 10, means that ships come back that are significantly more challenged in terms of maintenance issues. These are some of the issues that we talked about this morning. I know this committee is really interested in this topic, and a request. Senator McCain has written a letter to the service chiefs asking for the FY17 unfunded requirements priorities list. I think some of those letters are coming back to us, or maybe some early drafts are coming back to us. I would encourage that on the unfunded priorities and requirements list, they in fact be prioritized rather than just a big list, because that will help us as we grapple with the NDAA challenge, and I am going to make that question for the record as well. What is the status right now on the aviation side, Naval and Marine, the status of aircraft awaiting repair at the aviation depots? Has there been any improvements in this awaiting repair category, and how are we funding depots, and what's our ability to bring down that amount of aircraft awaiting repair?
Sir, I'm sorry, Mr. Secretary. Okay. Sir, I'll take the first stab at that. This is something that General Neller and I are working very closely on, because this affects both of us. This divot in backlog in ready basic aircraft, really the backlog in the aircraft depots goes back a few years, really exacerbated by fiscal year 13 and the sequestration that happened then. We are doing a very systematic appraisal of that process, and we are seeing improvements. We improved 44% this year over last year, and so we're seeing the throughput of that, the depots improve. General Neller and I were at the Fleet Readiness Squad, the depot in California. We walked through the entire line. They've got a very systematic approach that looks at all of the limiting lines, and we look forward to sort of continuing to improve that throughput. Additionally, we are looking forward. These are the legacy aircraft, particularly the Strike Legacy Hornets. And so we're looking forward to when the Super Hornets come through. We're learning all of the lessons. We're starting to get prepared for when they come through in the depots. And then has been submitted with our budget, and also on the unfunded list that you mentioned, is the request for buying additional Super Hornets in both 17 and 18 to help to mitigate that. So we're taking a full court press. We're funding those depots to pretty much the maximum executable capacity right now, and we're leaning that system out to get everything we can out of that.
Great. General Neller?
Senator, as the CNO said, I think these accounts are fully funded. There's there's a number of fleet readiness centers, and we've also contacted with additional vendors like Boeing and L3 to do more for the fixed-wing aircraft. So if they can fulfill their contract, and they did last year, and they do it again, and the fleet readiness centers improve their processes, I think at the initial, when all these planes kind of descended on them, I don't think, the processes they had were not effective. The planes sat and they waited. So they've gotten much better. And I get this not from my own observation, but from talking to other people that had visited them a year ago, saying the process here is much improved. They've got a much better flow. So I believe that we're in that particular model type series of airplane for F-18 A and D, we're at the bottom and we're on our way up, and we're going to get better. Every model type series aircraft in the Navy and the Marine Corps is a little bit different. Right now, we're in the middle of recapitalizing every one of those. F-35 to replace the F-18, the AV-8B, and the EA-6B. We're still in the procurement process for MV-22 Osprey. We're buying Hueys and Cobra attack helicopters. The Hueys are almost complete, and there's been some issues with that. And then we're just the experimentation and the prototyping and flying of the 53 replacement. So I'd say right now, the 53 is probably in the worst place because of a number of things that are going to get fixed by this new airplane, but this new airplane's not going to be ready for probably 3 or 4 more years. So that procurement will have to be something that goes back to the acquisition that we're going to watch and we're going to have to guard. So if we can get more parts, we can get the sustainment at the depots, we're going to get more basic aircraft on the line, our pilots will fly more hours, our readiness will go up, and the Marines and the sailors that fly these aircraft will do what they want to do, which is fly. So there's even a retention piece to this that we've talked about, because if you're not flying, then you're not doing what you came in to do. So there's a whole lot of things, even maintainers. So it's very complicated, but I think we got a comprehensive plan. We met with our leadership of the aviation enterprise, Navy and Marine Corps the other day. Money's there, it's just we're going to have to watch it and press it, and it's going to take a little bit of time.
Great. Thank you very much. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Senator Wicker.
Thank you. Admiral Richardson, our most recent 30-year shipbuilding plan has a target size of 308 ships for the Navy. Chairman McCain touched on this in his opening statement. I'm interested in the methodology behind the Navy's shipbuilding requirements. What year was the 308 ship determination made?
Sir, that was made in 2012, and it was updated in 2014.
Okay, and what was the number in 2012, and what was the number in 2014?
It was 308 throughout, so the 2014 just validated the 12 assessment.
Has anything happened around the world since that determination was made that would make us revise that force structure?
Yes, sir. At the time we did that original assessment, we were not contending with a resurgent Russia. ISIL was not on the map, and the People's Liberation Army Navy was in a much different place, and so the security environment has changed.
So 3 major developments?
At least, yes, sir.
And so will you be pushing for a revised force structure assessment, and when might we see that?
Sir, I've already commissioned that to start. We intend for that to briskly get done through the spring and look forward to seeing that done in the summer.
All right, and right now we're on pace to get to 308. When?
In 2021.
Okay. Well, we look forward to seeing an accurate force structure based on current.
Yes, sir. I look forward to
threats.
briefing you on that.
Thank you very much. Let me ask you, General Neller, about amphibious ships. You recently told the House Armed Services Committee that the Marine Corps needs ships cheaper and faster. I think we certainly agree with that. As you know, Congress added an additional LPD amphibious ship after feedback from your predecessor, General Amos. We appreciate his input and his service, as we do yours, sir. The Navy is now looking to develop the LXR class of amphibious ships that will replace our aging dock landing ships. The Navy has made a decision that the LXR vessels will use the current LPD-17 hull form. Do you believe that the LPD-17 hull form provides all the capability that you need to replace our legacy dock landing ships?
Senator, thanks for the question. Yes, I do. We have got a lot of confidence in the LPD-17 class ship, and again, we appreciate the funding for the 12th ship of that class, LPD-28. So there was discussion about, before I assumed this post, whether just to go to an LPD-28 repeat. The cost, there was a costing figure for LXR that we didn't believe LPD-28 could meet at that time. So the decision was made to go with the hull form and come up with a new design that would be similar to that, but it would meet the costing of about $1.6 billion, and then the further drive down the cost of the ship down to 1.4. So that's going to be competed between 2 shipyards, and I'm confident that they will come up with a design that's similar to the LPD-17 class ship, and we can make it in time. The first class of that ship is supposed to be put under contract in 2020.
If we could find the money, sir, would you support acceleration of the LXR ship competition?
Absolutely, Senator. I would. We could find the money, and we could do a block buy where these ships would be, as Secretary Mabus said, it's any time we can build them year after year. You keep the workforce employed, they get faster, they get better. The ship is a better quality and is put out faster and then generally comes in at a lower price.
Thank you. And Admiral Richardson, in the short time we have left, tell us what the future holds for the autonomous surface vessels.
So I would say that the autonomous surface vessel is one of, I would say, a suite of unmanned capabilities that really, behind the Secretary's leadership, the Navy is doubling down on. And I think that these autonomous surface vessels provide capability that can be used in a number of different areas. I've got my eye on it with respect to the mine hunting mission. And so I think that that and a number of other areas that I'd be happy to brief in a classified setting are real opportunities for the unmanned in general and the surface vessel in particular.
Secretary Mabus, you have anything you'd like to add in 20 seconds?
You know, it's the reason that we've stood up the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Unmanned N99 on the CNO staff is to make sure that we're utilizing all the technologies in a comprehensive way in unmanned, because we're the only service that does it under, on, and above the sea, and to make sure that as we move forward, because these are going to play such a huge role in the future, that we have the technology right and that we're not duplicating, we're not using any money unnecessarily, but that we're pushing forward to do the things the CNO just talked about.
Thank you, and I look forward to that classified briefing, Admiral. Thank you.
Senator Hirono.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Secretary Mabus, I too want to add my thanks to you for your service and wish you the very best going forward. General Neller, on in early March, Japan's Prime Minister Abe announced that he has decided to temporarily suspend preliminary work on the Futenma replacement facility in Henoko, in Okinawa, and he stated that talks between the local government and Tokyo on the relocation of the base would continue. So how do you see this situation in Japan, Okinawa, playing out, and what impact will this have on our overall relocation strategy, including what we're doing in Guam and what we need to be doing in CNMI and going forward?
Well, Senator, first, there's no linkage between Guam and what's going on with the Futenma replacement. So I see that even though we've pushed some number of projects to the right, I think we're still on track to move the number of Marines to Guam and do that work. As far as Okinawa, because part of the judgment is that there will be no work at the Futenma replacement up at Camp Schwab vicinity of Henoko during this time, and they don't expect that they're going to reconvene. The court will, or whatever adjudicating authority is going to review this thing until March. So there was not a whole lot of work being done because we weren't able to get concrete in. So we were going to build a concrete plant there, so that buys us some time to do that. But some of the work that was being done out on the reef to get ready to fill in the landfill in. So right now there's nothing going on. But we continue to support the Japanese government trying to get an agreement with the prefecture of Okinawa to build the FRF. So we'll have to wait and see what happens in March.
You're talking about a year from now?
That's what the agreement was, as I understand it.
As a time frame for them to decide when we are there.
So they have to, the judge asked them to try to come up with an agreement, and then the government of Japan issued what was called a corrective action order, which gave the government of Okinawa, the governor, until March to reply. So until that time, there's no work being done up there.
More delays. Well, it is what it is. Secretary Mabus, I believe that U.S. energy security is a vital component of our overall national security, and I've had conversations with department officials who agree that our country's energy security needs are closely tied to our overall national security. And the amount of operational energy the Navy needs to carry out its mission is significant, and while fuel costs are low right now, as we know from history, prices do fluctuate and they will probably go up. I know that the Navy has done significant work in this area, and I commend your leadership on this issue. Can you update us on how the fiscal fiscal year 17 budget affects your efforts to reduce energy consumption, use cleaner alternative sources, and increase U.S. energy security?
Thank you, Senator. First, the goal is to have at least 50% of our energy needs met by alternative sources afloat on ashore. Ashore, we are there. We got there by the end of 2015, and it's making us more resilient. We're beginning to now move to things like microgrids, so we can pull ourselves off the grid in case something happens. We can still do our military mission. And we're doing this almost exclusively through public-private ventures. At sea, the Great Green Fleet is deployed now. It's sailing on a mixture of marine diesel and biofuels. And these biofuels were procured by the Defense Logistics Agency under a regular RFP. They're competitively priced as the law requires and as we require. So it's becoming the new normal for that. And the example that I give is in Singapore. You've got an oil refinery that one of their oil refineries there that's owned a majority by the Chinese. Right down the road is a biofuel plant owned by a Finnish company. And so we need to not be dependent on one type or one location of fuel. Finally, we are also making a lot of headway in terms of efficiencies, reducing the amount of energy that we use. And the Navy's down in terms of oil usage by 16% since 2009. The Marine Corps is down about 60%. Now part of that is fewer operations in Afghanistan and Iraq, but the Marines have also been leaders in terms of energy efficiency and making energy where you fight so that you don't have to be resupplied.
Thank you, and General Neller, thank you for your efforts in this regard.
Senator Tillis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Gentlemen, welcome, and thank you for your service. General Neller, I had a question for you. It relates to personnel. I think you're down about 20,000 by the end of the year, about down 20,000 active Marines from the 2012 numbers. Kind of curious how that reduction is affecting your deployment time to home ratio and any other issues related to retention, morale, or effects on families.
Senator, when we grew the force to 202K to meet the operational demand and provide adequate depth to dwell when we were fully engaged in Iraq and Afghanistan. As we've withdrawn the bulk of that force and we're bringing the force down to 182, that's a 2-to-1 force. In some cases, based on the type of unit, it's inside that. So it remains to be seen what that's going to do to families and retention. It does give us a very short time. We would prefer to get ready to go. We would prefer to be a 3-to-1 force, which is why the optimal force, based on the current force structure, was said to be 186.8, which gave us a 3-to-1 for aviation squadrons and infantry battalions, which is the normal deployment. So we think 2-to-1 is the minimum. As General Paxton mentioned today in the readiness hearing, we are going to have to cut back some of the capabilities we provide to combatant commanders in order to reduce some of the tempo and pressure on the force, particularly in aviation, and we're prepared to do that. Not because we want to, but we have to give their forces enough time to reset, and we have to give them enough time to do the training they need so that when they do deploy, they're ready to go. So we're watching this very closely. It has our attention, but I think right now it has not been a factor, but I'm concerned about it.
Well, it seems to me when you've got threats going in the other direction, to touch on what Senator King discussed, and I think what Senator Fisher alluded to, we've got threats today that we didn't have in 2012. Admittedly, we're not as engaged in, say, Iraq and other areas of the world, but it seems like while the threat profile is going up, our ability to actually provide the combatant commanders what they need is going down. It just doesn't seem like the right trend lines. And we need to continue to watch it. This may be for Secretary Mabus or Admiral Richardson. I read a news report the other day, and believe me, I don't believe anything I read, and I knew that I was going to come here and see you guys, so I thought I would ask you that the Navy is reported to have, in reaction to, I guess, some failing their physical fitness standards test, and not necessarily achieving the existing body mass index requirements, that there have been a change in those requirements. Is that report true? A simple yes or no answer is okay if it's no.
The answer is they've been changed, but not for that reason.
Can you give me an idea of why they have been changed?
Yes, because we were doing, first we would measure people to do the body fat analysis. We'd measure their neck and their waist. If they didn't pass that, they didn't get to take the physical fitness test until they got into spec. One of the things that penalized were weightlifters, people that were in great shape because their necks were big. And so it didn't make much sense. We were removing more people for failing the physical fitness test than we were for drugs.
Yeah,
in the Navy.
Secretary Mabus, I completely get that. I think it makes that would make sense. The other part of the report, maybe it's not accurate, is that some of the physical fitness test standards had also been changed because of some challenges that we were having. Is that true or false?
They have not been lowered. Some of them have been changed to make them more realistic in terms of what we do. I mean, the Marines have the combat fitness test. The Navy wanted to move more toward making it job related, but we've also gone to, people were training for the test. We were doing it every 6 months, so they wouldn't get in shape until the last couple of weeks. They would go on these crash diets, and it was becoming dangerous. And so now we're doing spot test that, you show up one day and it's your lucky day and you get to put on your PT gear and go out and do the PFT. So what we're trying to do is have a culture of fitness that you stay fit all the time, not just for the test, and that the physical fitness requirements have something to do with the military requirements of your job.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
On behalf of Chairman McCain, Senator Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gentlemen, thank you for your public service. Mr. Secretary, your public service, long and distinguished governor, ambassador to Saudi Arabia, and now very long-serving 7 years as secretary. So thank you. Today, the administration walked back its plans for drilling off of the east coast of the Atlantic. It is my understanding that the Pentagon was one of the ones that objected, as the Pentagon objected years ago to the drilling off of the coast of Florida, where we have the largest testing and training range in the entire United States. Do any of you all want to give us some insight into the Pentagon's objection that caused the administration to walk this back this morning?
We, as the Navy, had some concerns, particularly on our test ranges and our ability to do exercises in the affected areas. We made those concerns known, and there were concerns about both aircraft and ships in the affected areas.
Well, that sounds like the similar concerns that were voiced by all branches several years ago in the Gulf of Mexico. And in that particular case, it's also a test and evaluation area for the development of new weapon systems, because they've got a range that they can go 300 miles over water and even onto land if they need to. So it sounds like similar objections.
I know what the objections are this time. The other one, believe it or not, preceded my service, which evidently dates back to World War I now. But my understanding is the concerns are similar.
For Admiral or either the Secretary, what do you see as the future for the LCS and particularly the fast frigate?
Let me take the first crack at that and then turn it over to the CNO. We've got a validated need for 52 small surface combatants. As the CNO testified, that was done in 12, that was redone in 14. We're currently doing another one. So this will be the only mine hunting platform that we have. This is a crucial part of the fleet going forward for both counter surface and counter submarine. There was a concern about lethality and survivability a couple of years ago, so we did a year-long study, came up with the frigate program that substantially increases survivability, substantially increases lethality on this ship, while maintaining the modular concept, so that open architecture, so that as technology improves, we can improve. So it's one of the critical programs as we go forward to meet the needs that we have. The final thing I would say is that our deployments of this ship to Singapore have been very successful, both in terms of operationally, both in terms of testing things in real-world environments, and also in terms of reassurance to our allies and our friends in that region. And our plans continue to be to forward deploy 4 LCSs/frigates to Singapore.
Senator, Secretary covered it pretty comprehensively. I just add that this frigate plays a vital role in the fleet going forward in terms of contributing to maritime security in the fullest sense, operating alone in concert with allies, and also operating as part of the larger battle force. The enhancements that will go into this frigate will not only make that a much more lethal and survivable platform, but to the best of our ability, will backfit those into the other ships of the class so that we improve the capability of the whole class.
Admiral, in the pecking order of importance to the country, where do you put the dispersal of surface assets with regard to home ports so that you don't get them all in one place?
Sir, we go through a very comprehensive process called our strategic laydown process, which addresses that concern. We update that annually, and dispersal is a key part of that, to make sure that all of our ships are placed around the world to not only maximize their utility, but also to minimize their vulnerabilities. And so that dispersal is a very important aspect of that.
So is that why on the Pacific that you have 3 home ports for the carriers?
That would be one element of it, yes, sir.
Why do we only have 1 home port instead of the 2 that used to be for our carriers on the Atlantic?
Yes, sir. Really, the answer based completely on a strategic laydown, I think, would easily lead us to 2 home ports on the East Coast for aircraft carriers. When the fiscal situation allows us to appreciate the capital investment required to develop that second port, we look forward to achieving that.
You got any ideas when that might occur?
Sir, we are making some extremely tough choices in the current budget environment, and so as long as this type of an environment persists, it's going to be very difficult.
Well, at least the long lead item is done, and that's the dredging. You got that done all the way out, 1.5 miles out into the Atlantic.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. On behalf of Chairman McCain, Senator Sullivan, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, gentlemen, for your service and testimony today. I wanted to follow up on an issue that this committee has been very focused on, and that's the activities in the South China Sea, what China is doing with regard to militarizing certain reefs. What we've been doing as part of our strategy. You know, Admiral Harris was testifying recently and talked about how he stated China had militarized these formations. As you know, Secretary Carter gave a very strong policy speech that many of us were out at the Shangri-La Dialogue in Singapore last year about American broader policy. I think that was very strongly supported by members of this committee on both sides of the aisle. I think, though, there's been some sense of confusion by the implementation of that policy. So, Admiral Richardson, do you believe in your professional military opinion that we should be increasing the level of U.S. naval activity in the South China Sea within the 12-mile radius or zone of the militarization of some of these island formations? And should we be doing that on a regular basis and with some of our allies? And I'll leave it up to you or the Secretary. And if you can articulate, there's some confusion sometimes. Is it innocent passage? Is it freedom of navigation operations? When we're going within the 12-mile zone, which we have on occasion, what's been the policy from the Navy's perspective?
So I think, just to reiterate what the President and the Secretary of Defense has said, is the policy is that we will continue to advocate for the current international rules that govern behavior at sea, and that we will continue to sail, fly, and operate wherever international law allows. That's worldwide. This Freedom of Navigation program is a worldwide program, but because of the activity and the importance of the South China Sea, 30% of the world's trade goes through that body of water, and because of the activity of the Chinese, there's been a lot of attention there. My advice is that we would continue to advocate for that. And we are ready to do more of those types of freedom of navigation operations in the South China Sea when decision makers are ready to do that. The Navy is ready to do that.
And do we do those for example, on a routine basis? Do we transit the Taiwan Strait now on a routine basis?
We do, yes, sir. That and other places are these, wherever there are excessive maritime claims, it is part of the program's purpose is to challenge those maritime claims.
Let me ask just another quick question. It's a different part of the world, but there's been a lot of interest in this committee by members, not just myself, but on the Arctic and what's happening in the Arctic, how it's a very strategic location, how there's new sea lanes opening up. The Russians have undertaken a massive military buildup in that part of the world, not only for new BCTs and a new Arctic military command, but as you know, significant increases in icebreakers. They have 40. They're looking to add 12 more. We have 2. One's broken. If there was a policy decision made to do freedom of navigation operations in the Arctic, or alternatively, let's say the Russians, with all their capability, tried to shut down sea lanes in the Arctic in the summer when they're opening, do we even have the capability right now to conduct FONOPs in the increasingly important area of the Arctic with 1.5 icebreakers?
So it would depend on the conditions that are there. As you pointed out, that's becoming an increasingly strategic area of the world, one that we're focused on. As we do this renewed look at the demands and the force structure assessment to meet those demands this summer, the increasing strategic importance of the Arctic will be a key part of that.
So are we looking at increasing maritime operations there, looking at perhaps the importance of an Arctic port area, issues that I think can demonstrate America's resolve in an increasingly important area? And we've had discussions of how there's this battle between the Coast Guard and the Navy on who's in charge of icebreakers, but what it seems to do is just get us to the point of indecision, and we don't seem to be moving forward on it. Even the President, when he was in Alaska, talked about an icebreaker gap that we need to close, but we don't see the services kind of coming to any kind of agreement on why it's important or who's going to do it.
I think it's collaboration and cooperation between the Navy and the Coast Guard in terms of how we provide access and security in the Arctic. The icebreaker mission is clearly theirs, and I know Admiral Zukunft is focused on that very clearly. And
but they don't have the budget for a new icebreaker.
Sir, we're making hard choices in our budget as well.
So again, I see this stalemate between the Navy and the Coast Guard on the issue of icebreakers. That's kind of demonstrated even by your testimony, Admiral.
Sir, I don't see it as a stalemate. This mission is clearly, right now, the icebreaker mission is a Coast Guard mission, and we look forward to collaborating and cooperating with them on that.
Mr. Chairman, do I have time for one more question? I'm sorry. I didn't see Senator Blumenthal. I just wanted to follow up on Senator McCain's question on the Iranian capture of our sailors. And I know he already asked it, but these are well-trained American sailors. They have at least a 50 caliber or more in terms of weapons on their naval vessels. What were the ROEs that enabled our sailors to even be captured? I mean, if a hostile Iranian patrol boat is approaching a U.S. naval ship in international water, isn't the ROE to not be captured? And how did that happen?
Sir, clearly international law would prohibit boarding U.S. sovereign territory, which those riverine craft were.
So did we try to resist being boarded?
And there is always the inherent right to self-defense in our rules of engagement. The specific ROE and what exactly unfolded as that happened will be part of the detailed investigation. When that is complete and reviewed, I look forward to briefing you on the details there.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you. On behalf of Chairman McCain, Senator Blumenthal, please.
I want to second all my colleagues in thanking you for, each of you, for your extraordinary service to our nation over so many years, and also your commitments in terms of undersea warfare capability to both the Virginia and Ohio replacement programs. And I know, Secretary Mabus, you've been asked about this. You've been asked this question before, but don't we need to consider building, in effect, 3 submarines a year, 2 Virginia-class and 1 Ohio replacement program? And I'd like you to perhaps clarify what you've said on this topic. I believe that Senator Ayotte may have asked you this question.
Yes, we do. Right now, the plan is for starting in 21, when the Ohio-class replacement begins to be built, we would drop to 1 Virginia-class that year. However, we're undertaking a look right now, and a pretty intensive look, because we do think it's important to continue the 2 Virginia-class ships a year. And so it's a capacity issue, a capacity for our shipyards, the ability to do it. It's a capability issue. But we clearly have the need for the 2 Virginia classes, where those boats are coming in at the cost they are, at the schedule they are, which is sometimes up to a year ahead of schedule, because we're able to buy them 2 a year as a multi-year buy. And so, as I mentioned to Senator Ayotte, this will be part of the 18 budget submission. I'm confident that will go in there. And we're trying every way we can, working with you, working with Congress, to figure out a way to have that 3 submarine a year build. Because if we don't, if we miss a year on a Virginia, it's going to make the the attack submarine situation, particularly in the late 2020s, early 2030s, even more significant.
So as I understand your answer, there's a need to build those 3 submarines a year. And the question really is whether the shipbuilders have the capacity. So if they were to tell you, I'm certainly not speaking for them, that they can do it, you would, in effect, make a decision to go forward, assuming that the funding is there, because our national defense is well served by it, and because it would provide those boats at the lowest possible per unit price.
I think that that's a very good summary. And the shipyards, and that's what we're dealing with them now. We think they can have the capacity to do this, and so that little clause you put in, assuming the funding is there, becomes the critical part.
Admiral Richardson.
Senator, if I could just pile on a little bit there, just from the warfighting need, as you know, sir, we dip below the stated requirement for 48 attack submarines in the 2020s. That boat, because it comes online pretty early, if we get that in 2021, does a tremendous amount to mitigate the volume of that trough, and so it has a very asymmetric effect, which is why we're considering every possibility to get that done.
And when we talk about the need for a certain number of Virginia-class submarines and the need for the Ohio replacement program, this need is not an abstract, hypothetical, theoretical need. It is a matter of our potential adversaries building their own undersea warfare capability, particularly China and Russia moving ahead on their plans. Is that correct?
Sir, that's exactly correct. That number comes from, I believe, a 2006 study, and we are refreshing that requirement this year as part of our force structure assessment, which takes into account those threats that you just mentioned.
And there's no reason to believe that the intentions of Russia and China, who are our most advanced competitors in this sphere, are in any way moderating or reducing their plans to build their undersea warfare capability.
Sir, that's our understanding, yes, sir.
And
They'll continue
will
to do
that need also contemplate other means of undersea warfare capability besides submarines?
So we're looking at the full host of undersea capabilities to include not only manned submarines, both the Ohio replacement and Virginia-class attack submarines. We're going to enhance the capability of the Virginia-class by putting in the Virginia payload module starting in fiscal year 19, and we're also looking at unmanned technologies undersea as well.
Well, I think I'm the last questioner, but I want to close again by simply thanking you for your dedication to the submarine program, which means so much to our nation. For your frequent visits to Groton, we would welcome you back anytime you're able to come, and I will be extending invitations to you. I hope you can be there because we learn from your presence there as well as from your commitment to this program. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator Blumenthal. Gentlemen, thank you for your testimony. Thank you for your extraordinary service to the nation and to the Navy and the Marine Corps. And on behalf of Chairman McCain, let me declare the hearing adjourned. Thank you.